Hey y'all, Monk Joseph here with the Broken Buddha. Today we are going to have a nice little talk about the 5 monotheistic religions that every monotheist should be aware of. This will probably be a little lengthy, but let's see if I can get it done. I've never had to really explain or articulate how these things all intermingle, but I do think this is important. If you're going to claim to be a monotheist, you should be aware that there are multiple groups saying the same things in various scriptures. All right, so let's talk about what they are really quick. The 5 that we're going to talk about are Christianity, Hinduism, yeah, that's right, Sikhism, where am I? Taoism, and Buddhism. Technically, Buddhism and Hinduism are very closely tied, um, but they are very different. Also, the only one I'm leaving out is Islam because I have not spent time as a Muslim, and maybe never will, because I'm really starting to shy away from the religions that are very Abrahamic based. I mean, I said Christianity, but Christianity really has nothing to do with the history and lore of the Jewish people. If you look at my Christian contemplation series, and it doesn't negate anything that anyone's experiencing. It's just if you're going to walk the path of Yahushua or Jesus, if you will, you should probably focus on the Book of James and or solely the New Testament, because none of that other stuff honestly has anything at all to do with it, other than making it clear that the whole monotheist concept, which I'm not going to get into that because again it's been negated. All right, so let's get right into it. When it comes to Christianity, again, I pretty much covered everything just there. The only thing that I'm missing that I didn't state was that if you really study all of them, it kind of comes to light that you're more experiencing a one creator that is creating, not one creator that built a Lego set and walked away. The whole created, set in motion, and deuces. Yeah, so it's more of constantly creating. You could almost even think of it as from a quantum scale. Things you don't understand that are constantly creating, because everything proceeds on a quantum or very small scale before you see it on a macro scale. So it's a very good way for a modern human to try to understand how a single creator could be constantly creating this. I'll call it a simulation. All right, now let's move to the trickier ones. A lot of people are going to want to contest that things like Hinduism is not monotheist, but in advanced Hinduism, you're going to come across an idea called para-Brahman, that one thing is depicting many things to guide all the different types of humans to liberation or enlightenment, if you will, moksha, as they would call it. But again, it is an advanced concept, and a lot of people get locked in their versions, whether it's the Vishnu, Vaishnavism, Shaivism, Shaktiism. I took the Shaktiism side of things, but at the end of the day, it's a para-Brahman concept that you need to reach for to understand, to be able to merge. All right, that really covers all of that. Let's keep on going. Sikhism. Y'all know I love my Sikhs. They are pantheistic monotheists, which means that everything in time and space in the universe is the wonderful teacher teaching us all how to get to mukti, more specifically Jivan Mukti, if you can make it that far in this life. Otherwise, keep on going, keep trucking, keep trying. But it is a monotheist religion. I think it gets it probably gets a bad rap because the deification, the deification, they deify their gurus, and it's neither here nor there. One thing I've learned when studying religious antitheses is that the antithesis that you experience of a religion within a religion actually helps you to understand the balance of it and will help put everything into perspective. And it also, in my opinion, everything here is very balanced, whether we see it or not. And when you experience those antitheses, you're experiencing the balance, the other side of the clean, clear-cut information, because you wouldn't know the good from the bad if you didn't have bad. I don't want to get into that too much, the whole discernment concept, because it's very philosophically hard to approach. But trust me when I say that the antithesis or bad or hypocritical things you experience in every religion contribute to your complete understanding and evolution and progression within that religion. Trust me on this one. All right. Anyway, so that covers the Sikhism. And there's playlists on all of this stuff. I mean, you go to the Buddhism Enlightenment playlist, I covered a lot of the Hinduism stuff, and how polytheism isn't real when you get to the advanced levels of these religions. So I mean, you can go explore this all further in my other playlists. There's a Sikhism playlist. Go to the playlist if you're really having a hard time believing or understanding these things. I break it down a lot more in them. All right, moving right along. Where was I? Taoism. So Taoism is fascinating for lots of reasons. They figured out all kinds of things, and I trust their intuition. We'll say it like that. Furthermore, if you are studying as a Christian, you understand Yahushua as the way, the truth, and the life. Well, first, let me backtrack that real quick because the truth coming out of Hinduism would be called Dharma or Dharma. And it's very interesting to hear that a sage telling people, I am this version that you understand as God. And then when he said, I'm, the way is what Tao means. And that's why I bridged into that with that. So when you talk about Taoism, you're just talking about the way-ism. That's what it means. So again, and this one is like Buddhism, it's going to be perceived as non-theist or non-God. But you have to understand, look at it from I'm coming from a Judeo-Christian perspective. And when you're trying to understand this thing that cannot be understood as articulated by anybody who's ever tried, it's good to kind of cross the ideas. And Tao is the closest thing when you're reading I know I just kind of shamed the whole Jewish history and lore into that falls into Christianity, but in the beginning of the Torah or the Old Testament, when it says God created light and it was good and God separated light from darkness, at that point there was no light or dark. There was only void or darkness, whichever one you want to pick. Tao is the closest thing to that you will ever study. So if you really want to understand God pre-Big Bang, pre-creation, you need to understand Taoism. And I've gotten far enough to it where only advanced people are going to really fully understand this. But I've gotten to the point where I can hit emptiness watching emptiness, and I can get rid of that to try to reach for void. So I can reach for void and maybe touch it or taste it a little, but I've never gotten there all the way. But that is how you get to understanding. And realistically, when you're meditating that advanced and that intensely, I say it intensely, but it's like super calm and clear. You're more just being with it, and you're not really trying to wrap your mind around it, understand it, how to figure out how to explain it to others. You really need to stay in this like purely empty, still state. But even if you're empty, you're still idealizing something. You have to get to this point of emptiness beyond emptiness, and then you're just starting to understand what it is. You see what I'm saying? It's really complex. I love the Taoist approach to God because they're like, all right, there's a thing we need to talk about. We shouldn't name it because it's completely unfathomable, but we have to name it to talk about it, so let's call it Tao. Let's call it the way. I mean, they wouldn't even name it an object. They named it like a pulling, a feeling, an intuition. So it's very, very interesting. All right, so let's move on to Buddhism. And by the way, I'm sorry, I didn't cover how that's monotheist. You have this origin point of nothingness, and whether it's sentient or not is up to you for debate or how you discuss it. I mean, everybody covers these things differently, but me personally, all these religions are talking about the same thing. They're just different approaches and ways to look at it to try to get some type of grasping of what it is, what we're doing here, what the purpose is, what's my meaning in life. I found mine, and I'm trying to help you find yours. So yeah, so I do see it. I don't want to say that there is it's hard because I do study Taoism, and you don't want to say, yes, that is God, it's Tao. I'm trying to keep that super clear, unknowable stance towards it as I approach it. So it is there. The most famous sage in our history said, I am the way, I am Tao. So, I'd say you're on a good path if you're going that direction and you're a Christian. Don't be worried about this. I mean, your sage told you that's what he was, so just take it for what it is and roll. You know what I'm saying? All right, on to Buddhism. So, Buddhism has become just as all over the place as Christianity and the other religions that had to turn capitalist to stay alive. But most Buddhists would say that they're non-theists, and I don't think so. Look up something called Kunto Zangpo or Samantabhadra. And Kunto Zangpo is the Tibetan translation of it. Samantabhadra is the Sanskrit translation of it. But the idea is it's the same idea. It's the exact same idea as Parabrahman, just in a different word. So And it's one thing, or you could look up Vajrapani. Anybody who watches this knows Vajrapani is Mayidam deity, and it's just a term for a focus, something that helps you along the way, a friend that helps you along the way. And Vajrapani is another synonym for these things, because you hear things like Vajrasattva or Vajradhara. Those are also synonyms for Vajrapani. So, and the concept is that everything you touch, see, hear, experience is only capable of being created and experienced through what's known as the five aggregates, which are emanations of the five Buddha families. The Vajrapani is the culmination, or all of those powers of those five aggregates or five Buddha families in one thing. And it will take any form it needs to get you to where you need to be. So Siddhartha Gautama, or as you would know it, the Buddha, said there are 84,000 ways to attain enlightenment for the 84,000 different types of humans in this manifestation. So it takes whatever forms it needs to. And yeah, and I actually want to side touch really quickly. I said I wouldn't talk about Islam, but there is a barely pre-Islam concept that really articulates this nicely. If you've ever seen the Kaaba is, if you're ever seen a picture of Mecca, of all the Muslims walking in a circle around the big black cube, that is the Kaaba. And before it was in its current state, pre-Muhammad, pre the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Kaaba was filled with, I believe, 360 different deities, statues, and figures from every religion. I mean, everybody was represented in that Kaaba, and they would circumambulate or walk around it. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, put an end to that. Now, personally, I feel a certain way about that, because that was the perfect, and I mean perfect, example of a pantheistic, monotheist God. You had one thing projecting 360 things inward to guide people to it. So, I mean, it's really impressive. I mean, if you really think about how intuitively advanced our ancestors were, ancient peoples were. So, but if you didn't know that, that's some realness, and it's the best way I can ever explain a pantheistic, monotheist God. So that covers all of it. Yeah, man, you got Christianity. Personally, I say, stick to the New Testament, stick to the Book of James. Maybe check out some of the Gnostic scripture. Stay away from the apocryphal books, just because it's not really has nothing to do with the path of Yeshua or being a Christian. Hinduism, focus on your para-Brahman concept. Find a way to get back to the source. And personally, guys, I like Shaktiism, because if you watch my videos and you study the Shaktiism, I think I've got a better chance of getting you to a para-Brahman concept than the other three versions of Hinduism. Main versions, there's a million. Okay, still going. I can't remember this exact order. Sikhism, Waheguru is your one God. Pay very close attention. This wonderful teacher, we are experiencing this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful teacher. I cannot express to you enough that I know this, and I hope one day you get to know this too. It's a wonderful feeling and a wonderful experience. It's like being on a college campus all the time, no matter where you are, is how it feels. When you walk on that college campus and you got that growth kind of feeling to you, you'll have that feeling if you can embrace Waheguru like that. Taoism, I've said enough, and the less I say about that, the emptiest I leave this, the better it is for your Taoist practices. But there's plenty of stuff. I just did a video on Taoism yesterday, so go check that out if you want to know more about it. Where were we? Buddhism. All right, and then Buddhism, again, you've got, personally, I say Vajrapani, man. I say go all in with Vajrapani. He'll get you there. He'll get you to the Samantabhadra, Kuntazangpo, Vajrasattva, Vajradhara, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is to you. We're talking about Vajrapani. Look it up. He is the oldest emanation of this. And he took like a back seat after all these other patriarchal deities popped up and all the other synonyms for him popped up. But trust me when I tell you that Vajrapani is para-Brahman in Buddhism. Hands down. You want to fight about it? Just kidding. Yeah, no, but trust me, that it's there. And, Vajrapani has a scary look, but it's your own dogmatic reactions looking you back in your face. And that's why we use Vajrapani, is to help you break of those dogmatic reactions. And there's tons of videos. go to my Enlightenment Buddhism playlist. There's tons of videos on Vajrapani, so you can't say you didn't know or didn't have a chance to know. All right, that's all I got for you guys. I know this is probably a little ranty, but I get a lot of frack here and there about people who don't understand monotheism, and that there's 6 monotheistic religions if you include Islam. I practice 5 monotheistic religions constantly, and I mean constantly. It's not, the more you blend it, the less you see that as 5. You'll see it when you first start. You'll feel a certain kind of way from your dogmatism and whatever indoctrination you've experienced through those religions where you gain that dogmatism. But the more you practice the 5, the more you'll get into it. You can, no matter what mantra you're doing, you're only doing it to one thing within one thing. No matter what ritual you're doing or what's in front of you, you're only doing it to one thing within one thing. And it's our egos that need to think that it is something different or special, or that we are something different or special, or that we are worthy of some deity trying to trick us. Stuff like that. Where does your dogmatism come from? And that's what you need to break when you get into studying monotheism with all 5 monotheistic religions. I may go to Gurudwara this Sunday. I'm going to do some stillness, emptiness, watching emptiness sometime this weekend, maybe probably today. I did my Buddhist mantras for things and stuff the other day. Also, those two kind of fall into each other. Buddhism and Hinduism with the rituals get very blended very quickly. And what else? Maybe I'll read the Book of James today. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't adhere to these things, as a scholar, as an academic, just watch and look how they all blend. If you do adhere to these things and you are a believer, you're inside of it. Learn it. You don't have to worry so much about all the divisions. You're not doing 5 different things. You're in one thing, experiencing one thing, and take those 5 things and help make it one thing, and then you'll really understand what you're looking at. You won't understand. You can't fully ever understand or know it. You can fully understand and know yourself and what this is, but it's unfathomable, and it's spoken of as unfathomable until it is done with this, and we all know. So then that's going to be a completely different game. But yeah, so it's one thing to know, when you talk about enlightenment, you're talking about knowing what this is, what the purpose is, what the meaning is, but to know it is not the same. So yeah, just giving you a heads up on that. All right, so there you have it. I got a little bit ranty there at the end, but for the fact of the matter is that this is it, guys. You got 5 monotheistic religions. If you're pretending that you're monotheistic because you're a Christian looking at the Old Testament and you never look up, I would, that's polytheism, man. Go look at my Christian Contemplations playlist. That's not a monotheistic religion you're looking at and studying there. So, double check that. And same thing with the others. There's some Buddhists and Hindus that are going to watch this and be like, I'm not a monotheist. Like, yeah, you are. You're either monotheistic. No, you're monotheistic or you're a lazy monotheistic. Like, I've had conversations with advanced yogis that tell me that I'm advanced. I believe in para-Brahman, but then they start breaking down, the 3 part again, the whole Brahma Shiva, the Vishnu Brahma Shiva thing, which for me, I add in Shakti because it's more relevant to understanding it as a whole. But same thing with Buddhism. We're non-theists, really, because you're supposed to experience, Vajrapani, aka Vajrasattva, aka Samantabhadra, Vajradhara, in real time. So for you to tell me that you're a non-theist when you're supposed to experience the raw simulation as part of your practice and training is kind of insane if you think about it. Like, we don't believe in God. Wait a minute, I thought that seeing God face to face or the expression of God face to face was the most advanced practice in your religion. No, what? And that's kind of what I get whenever I try to have a conversation about it, and it doesn't usually go in their favor because, yeah, they usually just kind of smile and give a little chuckle, and that's the end of it. They walk away in denial laughing. So, all right, but there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you didn't enjoy it, I hope it was at least informative. I hope it wasn't too ranty, but thank you for stopping by The Broken Buddha. Peace and blessings.